All right, part two of this renovation is to kind of change the overall look of the living room. I love this hutch. We bought this hutch. This is the first piece of furniture we bought for our house, and it's going to get repurposed somewhere else. Instead, what we're going to do is give this room kind of a focal point. Going to bump out from the wall a little bit, have a hearth, have kind of a modern looking fireplace I designed in SketchUp. And then I had a buddy break down the components so that I could actually cut it out and make it useful and actually carry out the project. But this video is to show you that process. So enjoy.
All right, the first step is to get this out of the living room and slide it all the way to the dining room. I had to move it like 20 feet. It wasn't far at all. But you know what? My kids left behind some remnants. We've got Legos. We've got Scrabble game pieces. We got stuffed animals. We got hair ties. We got dirt. It all cleaned up pretty easily. And I already had the lines on the trim marked out, ready to cut. Need to keep the outlet inside the line, and you'll see for that reasons for that later. Make this other cut. Then I begin to score the baseboard. I don't think the scoring was really necessary, sort of a force of habit, just so I don't break the paint line. But this is all getting covered up and repainted anyway, so it wasn't necessary, but it certainly helped pulling off that piece of trim. Step 2, head to the shop and start cutting up some 2x6s. Now this was for the base, for the side pieces, and for the top plate. I probably could have done this in a much more sophisticated fashion, but I stuck these pieces of drywall in there, and I stuck the baseboard in, base plate in there, and then I put the side pieces of this frame at an angle so that I could actually fit the top plate. Being a one-man job, you had to get kind of creative, so I angled them so it would give me room for the top plate to fit, and it was a really tight friction fit at this point. And I just start hammering it in until it's in place, and doing the same thing on the other side so that it's real tight and I can trust that it will stay put before I start screwing it in. Now I'm moving my laser, moving this little coffee table, and you can see the laser line. I line it up there on the bottom so that I get myself a straight line to give myself a good vertical reference, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. Now I'm just going to get up on the top of this ladder and bang this stud into place so that it is in line with my laser. Once I've done that, come back down the ladder, get my impact and my drill. I pre-drill a little bit so that these things don't slide around on me, and just sink some screws into each corner. Get that up on the top, move it over. I do the same thing on the other side. Now, once I get all of this worked out and in line, I'm going to do what I probably should have done before I ever even put up the first board. I'm going to take this TV off the wall. Now I just got to get me some measurements so I have some studs to screw the drywall into. Now, I'm going to do a ton of work off camera. So the long one across from left to right, that's about the height that the mantle will be. The opening in the middle there is the depth of the focal point fireplace, and the rest is just studs that give me a nice landing point for each piece of drywall as it goes up. Not like any good woodworker, I just stand and look at what I'm doing, because I forgot the measurements, I forgot the spacing, I didn't know how many I was going to go with, and to be honest, I had a very limited amount of 2x6s, and I did not want to make another run to the hardware store. So I was trying to just figure out how I can stretch my material as far as I can without having to go to get more. But you see, it did just fine, and I moved my laser around probably a lot more than necessary. These pieces do not have to be perfectly straight up and down. I could have just put them in place and screwed them in and made sure that I knew I was screwing the drywall in. But they're all perfectly level and perfectly placed, and I'm just finishing up screwing them in. And guess what? Just like that, the drywall is done. I spared you watching any drywall work. I hate drywall, so I wasn't going to make you see it. Now it's time to build the faux fireplace. What I'm using is just a bunch of 3/4 unfinished plywood. Poplar on one side, birch on the other. They're obscure lengths. They're like 10-foot lengths, but good solid stuff that I'd bought in mass quantity before. Now you'll see I'm going to make quite a few angled cuts on this plywood. The mantle is going to have this tapered angle effect, so there's a lot of obscure angles that go into it. You also notice that this piece is significantly longer than the other part, so this is what would be considered the hearth of the mantle. but it's also accounting for the depth of that little bump out that I had. So the hearth is 12 inches. The bump out was an extra 6. So I got an 18-inch piece there and a 12-inch piece. And I'm just making sure it all aligns. Right now I'm making marks so that I can notch out where it's going to recess into that cutout that is in the wall. I had to come about 15.5 inches in on both sides and down 6 inches. So that's what you see me measuring here. And I'm just making it to where these are perfectly square marks, because I do believe that I built a perfectly square bump out. And I get my study track saw out, making sure that I align with it and go just to my cut line. The track saw cuts very straight, but the reference is not entirely accurate. So I always get my blade and walk it up and down the line just to make sure it's where I want it. And then I cut and I make it just to that corner. Now you'll see that piece did not fall off. So I pull out my trusty Temple Tools flush cut Japanese saw, and man, it makes short work of it. Once I have all of those pieces cut, I get my measurement just to make sure I was correct for the bump out, and I was. And now it's time to put it all together. So lay it down on its side, on its face, I suppose, because this is the top. I get me some Collins miter clamps just to hold all my corners together, because we are mitered right there on the sides. We are mitered right there on the front. This is my dry fit just to make sure that all things line up, and it will get fully assembled off camera. Now I'm going to make rips for my 10-inch deep mantle. And here's the cool part. I told you earlier, I designed this in SketchUp and my buddy Aaron exploded it, so I have all my dimensions. So I'm cutting the side pieces first, so you'll see me cut here to length, and then each side of this and the top is basically like an upside down U. So I need to make 45-degree cuts. That's what you see me doing here. I make a 45-degree cut for the sides, and then the top piece actually needs 3 mitered angles, the front and both sides. So come over to the chop saw, cut one side, get that done, flip her around, get my measurement, and make the other mitered cut. Last part of this front piece is to take it over to my table saw. I've got this magnet switch. It holds it in place so that it doesn't walk on me, and just putting the miter on the front. Now I've got it Collins clamped together and start shooting all of this in place. A little bit of glue, a little bit of zippity zappity doo, and clamp it up and shoot it in place. Once this is complete, we'll go back to the SketchUp model and look at what the next part of this rendering is. The inside is these 2-inch little pieces that basically give it like a thickness profile. So I've got to do the same thing. I mitered the corners. I put a 45 down one side, and then on the interior angle, it's actually a very small 5-degree angle. I got these clamped up and pinned in as I'm going, so it's secure. Next, we're on to the other tapered part of this profile. 8¼ inch wide board, cutting right now a 5-degree angle. Now the miters on these corners, you'll see I did not really show doing that. And let me take a moment to show my appreciation for SketchUp and the accuracy within the drawing. So this was not an angle that I could easily find on my miter saw. It ended up being something obscure like 44.1. So I just trusted that the rendering was correct, and I'm so glad that it was, because these miters, these angles went in tightly and well and made it very easy to just pin in place, and I would come in from the back and staple that angle. On these shallower angles, I went with a pin nailer versus a brad nailer just so I didn't split anything out, and come on the back side of this seam with some staples. So the next thing to do is to add some stability to this structure. Now these angles are obscure. It's held together by glue and pins. It needs a little bit of support. So that's what I'm doing here. This is just like a webbing to give the other angles a place to be nailed into and give the whole thing some security, some stability, so that it will last for a long time. Altogether, I put 3 on each side and then 5 across the top middle section. And I just made sure that they aligned with the miter. Next, after these are all pinned in, I move over to the last piece that makes this mantle complete. This is sort of the part that will slide into the opening, you'll see that this is also deeper than the rest of the mantle, 6 inches deeper, so that it kind of goes into that void that the bump out created. And I use these these Collins miter clamps to make it all line up and just shoot it in. Bunch of brad nails. Turn it around, and this was another unique angle. 38-degree angle on the side, a 45-degree angle on the bottom, and just slide them in, tighten them up, pull them together. And as I have with every angle on this project, I reach for my Collins miter clamps and hold everything together, wipe off the glue, clamp another one in the underside, and just look at how tight this is. And now it's time to shoot it in place. My favorite thing about this project is the amount of trust that I had to put into the SketchUp rendering. I drew it myself, but then it was exploded by my buddy Aaron with precise measurements, precise angles to make this fit so well. I didn't have to second guess, I just trusted that it was correct, and man, it was. And let me show you how well everything was done, because this is the last nail, and we're going to flip her up and we're going to take her inside. I recruited my wife to help me carry it in, and we just come into the front, lay it down on its back, and this is the part that I really love. I gave myself just a little bit of tolerance so that it could slide in easily, but I did not realize how easily it was going to go in. Boom, just like that. And I'll tell you what, my wife's expression says it all. She's happy with it. She's happy, and I'm happy. Sits flush, nice against the wall. Check out this webbing, the counter depth so that it sits into the bump out. But guess what? I forgot to film any of the painting. Ashley painted the whole thing, and look how beautifully it turned out. It's elegant, it's simple, it's a focal point. And just like that, the focal point fireplace is done. And just like that, Everett got just a little bit of exposure into the fireplace. This is truly a focal point fireplace. It's going to be strictly for decoration and just somewhere to draw your eye. Everett got a little bit. That's all it lasted. That's project 3 of 5. Please stay tuned for the rest of the videos. Thank you so much for watching.